It's Monday, October 27th here in Korea. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Hwang Ji-hye filling in for Laah Hyun-kyung this week. These are the stories we're following at this hour. The question of whether relations between South and North Korea will arrive at a positive turning point will likely be decided this week, with Pyongyang yet to respond to a proposal for high-level talks on Thursday, and tensions running high over cross-border propaganda flyers sent by South Korean activists. Prosecutors are expected to demand either the death penalty or life in prison for the captain of the Sewol-ho ferry as a criminal court winds down its trial for the crew members. And over in Ukraine, exit polls show that the country's pro-Western parties have won a sweeping victory in parliamentary elections. Now, the prospects for a planned round of high-level talks between the two Koreas remain very much in doubt. South Korea has proposed to meet this Thursday, but instead of giving an answer to the offer, North Korea has again protested the anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaigns by South Korean activists. Hwang Ji-hye reports.
Responding to North Korea's protest against the latest anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaign, South Korea on Monday urged the North to come to their planned high-level talks.
We maintain the stance that the government has no legal grounds to ban activities by civic groups. North Korea should give its answer to our proposed date and place for the second round of high-level talks, which the two Koreas have previously agreed on.
2 weeks have passed since South Korea proposed to hold the second round of talks on October 30th at the border village of Panmunjom. Remaining mum on that offer, the North sent a message to South Korea's presidential office of Cheongwade early Sunday morning, protesting the latest anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaign. The North claimed although the daytime launch of the leaflets had been scrapped Saturday, the South Korean government turned a blind eye to a group of activists who sent about 20,000 leaflets at night. It said South Korea does not appreciate its efforts to mend inter-Korean ties and warned the high-level talks will not be held under such an atmosphere. Experts remain divided on whether North Korea will come to the negotiating table. Some say the high-level talks could be postponed until Seoul lays out a concrete solution to prevent the leaflet campaigns, while others expect the North to show up at least in early November. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
And while inter-Korean relations remain frosty, South Korean companies appear optimistic about the prospects for doing business following reunification. In a recent survey by the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry of 300 companies, 83% of respondents said reunification of the two Koreas would have a positive impact on the corporate environment and create new business opportunities in the long run. More than half of the companies replied they will benefit from the North's relatively cheaper labor in manufacturing and processing. However, the companies also said Pyongyang's contradictory actions of simultaneously testing missiles and proposing dialogue are a barrier to improvements in inter-Korean relations. The trial for those responsible for April's tragic Sewol-ho ferry disaster continues, and later today, prosecutors are expected to demand either the death penalty or life imprisonment for the captain and some other key crew members who have been charged with negligent homicide. Kwon So-hwa has the story.
More than 6 months have passed since the tragic Sewol-ho ferry accident that left more than 300 passengers dead or missing, and prosecutors are deliberating penalties for 15 crew members accused of fleeing the ship without evacuating passengers, but instructing them to stay put in their cabins. State prosecutors indicted Sewol-ho ferry captain Lee Jun-seok and other 3 senior crew members in May on charges of murder by willful negligence, the strongest punishment for which is the death penalty. Prosecutors say some of the crew members have confessed that they did not attempt to save passengers because they themselves wanted to survive. That includes Captain E, who has admitted to all of the charges against him, with the exception of murder, and says he wants to be punished. 2 other key crew members could be sentenced to life in prison, and 9 could be handed prison sentences of up to 45 years for negligence of duty and violation of maritime law, which demands they should have been the last to leave the ship. The families of the victims are expected to be in the gallery for today's session, some of whom had earlier pleaded for the crew members to be charged with the maximum penalty possible by law. 권소아, 아리랑 뉴스.
Korea's film industry has taken off in recent years and currently ranks as the 7th largest in the world. Today we focus on where those movies are being shown and watched here in Korea. On this week's Industry Insight, our cultural correspondent Park Ji-won reports on the success of the country's multiplexes at home and how they're expanding abroad as well.
According to the Korean Film Council, more than 80% of the 333 movie theaters across the nation are multiplex theaters. And of those multiplexes, more than 40% are CJ-CGV branches, the #1 movie theater chain in Korea, followed by Lotte Cinema. CGV opened Korea's very first multiplex in Seoul in 1998. Since then, it has brought in a number of innovative features, including the nation's first 3D and 4D screens, as well as Korea's first premium screen called Gold Class in 2001.
The cost for this premium seat is 3 times higher than a normal ticket, but you can enjoy free snacks and beverages, as well as this spacious and comfy sofa where you can relax and enjoy the movie.
Another key word of their success is cultureplex. CGV branches don't just offer customers premium movie watching experiences. They also provide a mix of things to eat like gourmet popcorn and things to see like exhibitions and even busking performances.
CGV provides better membership benefits compared to other movie chains. There are also a lot of restaurants nearby, and it has a good concession menu.
Lotte Cinema is another major multiplex operator, taking up about 35% of the market. Recently, Lotte Cinema opened Asia's largest multiplex movie theater at Lotte World Mall in southern Seoul, with 21 screens that can accommodate 4,600 moviegoers.
It offers premium facilities with a lot of amenities. The interior is modern and clean.
The new theater also has the world's largest projection screen, which has been recognized by Guinness World Records.
Based on the success here, Korea's multiplex chains have advanced into the global market.
About 200 million movie tickets were sold in Korea last year, meaning one person in Korea watched more than 4 films a year, on average. This number is higher than the U.S. figure, so we can say Korea's movie theater industry has pretty much reached full saturation and is seeing its limit. That's why CGV and Lotte Cinema are focusing on expanding their presence in foreign markets.
CGV opened its first foreign branch in Shanghai in 2006. Today, the company has 31 theaters throughout China, 16 in Vietnam and 1 in the U.S. It also has a management contract to operate 12 theaters in Indonesia.
It's really about the movie-going experience, the premium experience of sound, screen, seat, as well as a cultureplex model. Ultimately, those things will work abroad, and that's absolutely part of our strategy. Now, in addition to that, what we hope to do longer term is really focus on the Asian content.
Lotte Cinema also advanced into the global market in 2008, starting in Vietnam.
We opened a theater in Vietnam in 2008, 2 years earlier than in China. Now we are the #2 movie chain in Vietnam, and we aim to be #1 by 2018. By then, we hope to have at least 60 branches in Vietnam and in China, with a goal of raking in some $300 million in annual revenue.
Both CGV and Lotte Cinema say they are focused on China and Southeast Asia for the initial phase of their global investment. But ultimately, they want to expand elsewhere based on things that haven't worked for them here in Korea. Both hope that in the coming decades, their branches that spread throughout the world rake in more revenue than those based here in Korea. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve is expected to announce an end to its multi-billion-dollar bond buying program when it meets later this week. The International Monetary Fund says that could deal quite a blow to the local economy, adding, however, that it's too soon to hit the panic button. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The International Monetary Fund says Korea could take the heaviest blow among the countries in Asia if the U.S. exit from quantitative easing sparks a sudden rise in U.S. interest rates. Romain Duval, the IMF's head of the Regional Studies Division of the Asia-Pacific Department, says that it is quite possible that Asia's fourth largest economy will experience a shock as a result of the changes in U.S. monetary policy because Korea is vulnerable to external shifts. He says the impact will likely lead to a capital flight and a slowdown in exports to the United States. The IMF predicts Korea's growth rate could drop by nearly 1 percentage point if the U.S. interest rate were to rise suddenly, a move that's expected if the U.S. Federal Reserve announces an end to its multi-billion-dollar bond buying program when it meets later this week. Other Asian countries are likely to experience smaller changes. India's growth rate is expected to drop by less than 0.2 percentage point. But despite the dismal outlook for Korea, Duval says there's no need to panic just yet. The effects of the impact will be minimized because Seoul is able to utilize its financial and monetary policies to deal with external changes. Duval says it all comes down to how the Korean government handles the effects of the rise in the U.S. interest rate, saying it should pursue austerity measures and let its currency depreciate in the event of capital outflows. The IMF says the Korean economy could drop into the low 3% range following a U.S. interest rate hike, while Seoul projects the economy will grow to around 4% next year. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Staying in the economic front, buoyed by latest rally in New York, Korea's benchmark KOSPI turned bullish after 2 days, hitting 1,930 this Monday. As of this morning, shares had jumped 11 points from the previous trading day. On Friday, U.S. stocks ended the week on the highest note in almost 2 years thanks to earnings by Microsoft and Procter & Gamble. Also, foreign investors continued to pick up Korean shares for the second straight day, especially in banking, communications, and chemicals. Upon news that Hyundai Motor was considering giving out interim dividends next year, overseas buyers purchased some $36 million worth of shares of the automaker and its affiliates last Friday alone. And we had a raft of election results to report this morning from Brazil to Ukraine. First, we take a look at Ukraine. Exit poll results from Sunday's parliamentary elections there show that the pro-Europe bloc led by President Petro Poroshenko allies has scored a big win. Our Connie Lee has the details.
It's an overwhelming win for pro-Western parties in Ukraine's parliamentary elections. Citing exit polls on Sunday evening, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko declared victory, saying more than 3/4 of voters backed his political bloc.
The results of the election bring the firm victory of all democratic pro-European, pro-Ukrainian forces. And that gives us a lot of opportunity to develop, to provide the reform.
Official results of the election are expected Monday, but the sweeping victory in exit polls shows that voters supported Poroshenko's plans to end a separatist conflict and follow through with democratic reforms. President Poroshenko said he will start the talks on forging a new coalition in parliament come Monday.
I'm sure that in order not to lose time, coalition talks will start tomorrow. And I think leaders of all parties will be invited to join them.
The election comes 7 months after the revolution in Ukraine that took down former President Viktor Yanukovych, and during a time when parts of eastern Ukraine remain under the unofficial control of pro-Russia separatists. However, the voting shows that the country is trying to steer clear of Russia and take a pro-European path instead. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Turning now to Brazil, it's official. President Dilma Rousseff will see a second term as president of Latin America's largest economy. With 99% of the ballots tallied from Sunday's vote, the left-leaning politician secured more than 51%, with her rival centrist opposition leader Aécio Neves coming in with a close 48.4%. Neves conceded his claim to the presidency, wrapping up one of the closest, most divisive runoff campaigns in Brazil's recent memory. Rousseff's win also extends the rule of her Workers' Party, already in power for 12 years. It's also seen as a vote of support for her economic policies, which have offered generous welfare programs. From West Africa to the United States and Europe, cases of Ebola are spreading around the globe, as are the fears. Here in Asia, nations are taking measures to prevent an outbreak while also preparing for a worst-case scenario. Connie Kim reports.
Fears of a possible Ebola outbreak in Asia have begun to spread following confirmation that healthcare workers in the United States and Spain have contracted the virus after treating patients in West Africa. Compounding concerns are the travel habits of those living in the three countries hardest hit by Ebola. Analyzing data dating back to the start of last year, medical journal Lancet says China and India were among the top 15 travel destinations for people from Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. More than 8,600 people have traveled to the southern Chinese province of Guangdong Province from West Africa since late August. And acknowledging the need to bolster measures, China's National Health and Family Planning Commission called for medical institutions to upgrade infection control precautions by the end of October. Over in India, officials related to health, civil aviation, and shipping convened this month to prepare for a possible Ebola outbreak. India, currently the world's second most populous country, has less than 1/5 the number of hospital beds compared to China per 1,000 people. Korea is also getting ready for a worst-case scenario, following an announcement last week of plans to deploy medics to West Africa to help with efforts there. The health ministry pledged to designate 2 additional hospitals for the diagnosis and treatment of Ebola, bringing the total to 19. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Artists often have a message they want to share with their work, and today Im Yoon-hee joins us with an exhibition of artists with peace on their minds. Good afternoon, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon. Right. So today I have a look at an exhibition called the Paju Peace Station, and it takes place in and around the DMZ. Now, this exhibition comes just a couple months before the 70th year anniversary of the split between the two Koreas, so they have quite a bit in store. Take a look.
A grassy field. People casually strolling around. It's a typical scene full of life. Just one problem. They're sitting on a huge, destructive missile. Art has a funny way of casting a different light on perspective, on making people think twice. Like this bright, vibrantly colored soldier, peering through binoculars. A symbol of our current state of wariness, caused by the chasm of separation within the peninsula.
Unfortunately, the condition of our country being separated has turned into a source of merchandising. Every year, 100,000 people visit Panmunjom, so we want to send a message to them and make them realize the need for unification. Through art, we are encouraging people to seek peace. So at this exhibition, people will get a sense of the effort needed for peace, while at the same time experiencing the artworks we have prepared.
a project that's first of its kind and aims to spread awareness of the need for peace within Korea. 2014 marks the inaugural year for the Paju Peace Station. 18 contemporary artists from both Korea and abroad have gathered near the 38th parallel and have put together 20 different works of art, works that embody a message of peace and harmony. Many of them are housed at the Paju Book City in the recently opened Forest of Wisdom Library. Some works even enveloped between the shelves of books. Even the busy walkway is lined with what looks like just a bright yellow barricade, but is actually something with a much deeper meaning, a work of art inspired by an artist's own personal experience.
When you visit an army base, there's a long entranceway full of barricades. I had to weave in and out of them, and of course that takes a lot more time. The experience even made me a little nervous. With that in mind, I recreated the rectangular barricades and filled them with very fluid shapes that harmoniously flow together. So as people go through them, they will hopefully realize how precious our freedom is, while also seeing the beauty in harmony.
While many people have quite different approaches to finding a solution for peace, the artists here stand united and hope to share their ideas with others. With each artwork, the thousands that pass through will hopefully take a second look and one day share the same vision for peace.
We're seeing a lot of meaningful pieces over there, but what are some other events centering around the Paju Peace Station exhibition?
Right, so actually this past weekend they held a movie screening, the first screening ever of the first South and North Korea film. Now they held this at the Yeouido CGV movie theater, and they're calling it SNKF for short, but they're screening it at the 8 CGV theaters in Seoul and 12 across the rest of the nation, and they'll show this until the 31st of this month, so you have a couple more days to catch that. But like I said earlier, next year marks the 70th year anniversary of the split of the two Koreas, and so they're really trying to, I guess, show these types of movies and really getting that out there. And so a lot of people did show up for this event this past weekend, and they'll also be showing 7 other movies about the two Koreas at the designated CGV theaters across the nation.
And I hear that there's another event taking place in Gwanghwamun area.
Right. So they actually this weekend are holding a few more events to take place. They'll be ranging anywhere from kugak performances to even a performance by Puhwa, which is a popular band here in Korea. And so those performances will start at 4 p.m. on Friday and 10 a.m. on Saturday. And so you can catch those at the Gwanghwamun Square this weekend. So lots of people will show up for those as well. Very exciting. A lot of stuff in store.
Good to hear. Thank you for that report, Uni.
It was my pleasure.
Happy Monday, everyone. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. By the looks of the morning weather conditions, it seems like winter is upon us, especially after this rain here in the capital yesterday, which brought down the morning lows down to 6.1 degrees Celsius, though it is expected to rise up into the high teens later this afternoon. Now, other regions can expect similar daytime highs ranging from the low teens to the low 20s. However, strong winds are expected, so it may feel a bit chillier than that. Now, those of you in Gangwon-do province can expect windy and dry weather conditions throughout today, whereas the rest of the nation can expect some clear skies with a good amount of sunshine. Now to our readings for today. Seoul will peak at 17 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will reach up to 19 and 22 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island peaks to 18 while Dokdo hits 13, while Mount Hyeongang is a bit higher at 17 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and have a wonderful day.
And that wraps up our 2 p.m. newscast. Thanks for watching. More news coming up at 4 p.m. Korea time.